I'm here with Katie. She is a first grader at Woodland Elementary School. And Katie, I just have one very important question for you today. What's your favorite time of day?
Snack time.
Just like Katie, when I was a little girl, my favorite part of the day was snack time. But every day, my mother interrupted it by making me write my name first. I was not enthused about the task, and every day I would hunker down, and I remember tracing the little lines she had drawn me, and she knew I hated it. But one day, I surprised her. I brought her 2 copies of my name. One was the copy that she'd asked me to sit down and trace, and the other was a terrible, barely legible copy of my name that I had done myself. It was sloppy and barely readable, but it was still my name, and at 2 years old, I had started my route to literacy. My mom was my biggest fan when it came to my early literacy. I was reading competently by the age of 4 with the help of Bob books and my mother. Bob books were simple books designed to encourage emerging readers, and it wasn't long before I had them memorized. And even though my mother was acquainted with my above average literary performance, my first grade teacher was not, which made our very first grade trip to the library a little challenging. The biggest problem with the library in first grade was that I wasn't allowed to check out the books that I wanted to read. Both my teacher and the librarian felt that the books I wanted to read were far too high above the grade level that I should be reading at. And after I had begged a million times, my teacher finally allowed me to check out Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. But first, she made me read a page to her. After I saw the look of amazement on her face, I realized that being exceptionally literate was going to propel me much farther in life than the average bear. Accelerated Reader not only fed my competitive nature, but it also encouraged me to read more challenging books. I was absolutely determined to have my 5th grade class win the coveted pizza party, which was why I spent a sleepover party huddled in the corner with Christopher Paolini's eldest rather than jumping on beds and eating pizza as most normal 5th grade girls do. After elementary school, reading became a way for me to sink into another world. No longer was I an awkward tomboy with few friends. I was a writer, a witch, a princess, a ghost. The best thing about books was that I didn't feel like a middle schooler anymore. I felt like I mattered to somebody because an author had poured their heart and soul into a book for me to consume. And by the end of my 8th grade year, I was beginning to find my niche. And the library was beginning to run out of books that I hadn't read yet. The summer before I entered high school, I was completely immersed. Again, books were serving as an escape from real life for me. I had just moved to a new town and I was facing a long, lonely, very hot South Carolina summer. The downtown library became my favorite place. The doors would open and the chill of air conditioning would settle upon my skin as the scent of a million books wafted towards me. I would check out 7 or 8 books at a time, tearing through them like a ravenous animal. Wade Hampton was an absolute labyrinth to me. Never had I been so immersed in a crowd of strangers before. Growing up in a small community, I was never just a face in the crowd. At Wade Hampton, I thought there would never be a chance for me to be anything other than a shadow on the wall, or footsteps in a hall, or a body in a desk. But thankfully, I was entirely wrong. Books reached out and grabbed me in an entirely new way once I entered high school. I realized that books could be my inspiration. They were my encouragement to get out there and do something and have the courage to stand out instead of just being content with blending in. Through a heartbreak that crippled me for months, I felt as if my favorite books were urging me to get up and to keep going because I hadn't done anything yet. My life was stretching endlessly before me, and if I were to lie down and to give up now, then I would never be any kind of writer. Learning to read has taken me from an impatient toddler to a young woman who has found herself on the pages of a well-written book. And even though I can still spend an entire evening immersed in a good book, I know that if my adventure is ever going to start, I have to get out there and start it myself.